Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this session on sustainable agriculture. My name is Sarojini, and I will be moderating this extremely distinguished panel today. It's always interesting to be the first session after lunch. We promise to keep it interesting and engaging. So let me first begin with a quick introduction of our guest today. I have firstly Peggy Brekveld, who is the president of the Ontario Federation of Agriculture, which is an organization that supports about 30,000 members with farm policy, media relations, government relations, among other things. We also have Dave Smardon, who is the president and CEO of Bioenterprise, which is Canada's leading accelerator focusing on food and agricultural technologies. We have Charlie Angelakos, who is the Vice President, Global External Affairs and Sustainability at McCain Foods, which we all know is the world's leader in the frozen food segment. And then we have Alison Sunstrum, who is the founder and CEO of CNSRV-X, one among the many hats she wears, but this company is essentially developing and investing in emerging technology in agriculture. And then we have Karim Mansouri, who is the director of Canada Partnerships at OCP Group, which is a global plant nutrition company that's based out of Morocco. So as you can see, we have quite an interesting group of people representing various aspects of the value chain in the agriculture industry. Maybe just to start with, could we perhaps just talk a little bit about why it's relevant to have this conversation now about sustainability and agriculture? Maybe just a quick round with all of our panelists. Peggy, would you like to start?
Yeah, sure. So Ontario Federation of Agriculture represents about 38,000 farmers in Ontario and an industry from field to fork of $47 billion. We produce in Ontario over 200 different products. So it's a pretty exciting place to be. Our vision is farms and food forever. And I think that fits so well into a conversation about sustainability. And sustainability, just like in business, we talk about the planet, we talk about people, and we talk about profit. And all three of those things have to be healthy in order to make farming successful and not just sustain, but thrive.
Dave?
Yeah, I guess my view of this is that we have an ever-expanding global population. We have a decreasing amount of arable land, and we have to find a way to produce as much or more on the same land that we have been over the last little while. And so from our standpoint, one of the best ways to increase productivity, reduce costs, increase efficiencies is through sustainable agriculture and innovation.
Great. Obviously, climate change is a learning platform for us on the global food supply. At McCain Foods, over the years, we would have had one climate event that would happen, and we would never really know when it happened. But over the last 10 years, we're having 2 or 3 a year that we're noticing around the world, whether it's drought or cataclysmic events that are directly affecting our business, and not just our business, the business of our farmers, who we actually built our business with over time. So what we did was we undertook a climate study up until 2050 to see the effects of climate change on our business. And the results of that were stark. So it really led us to a path on how we can get to a better place through making a commitment of 100% smart, sustainable farming through regenerative agriculture by 2030 in order to get us all to a better place.
Okay, so I'm going to lean in because this is the most important conversation that you're going to attend over this conference. And the reason why is because agriculture is one of our greatest global opportunities. Economically, for Canada, this is our hugest opportunity. Canada is an agricultural nation, and we're also an innovation nation, and that's what it's going to take. I think that we all saw through the pandemic what a challenge we have when our supply chains are affected. And someone mentioned once that we are 9 meals away from anarchy. That's a kind of a very bold statement. But we need to produce more food on less land, as Dave said. We also need to do it sustainably, and we've got to meet this huge climate impact that we're going to have. So buckle up. This is going to be the best conversation, and look forward to taking it apart with you.
The world will face two enormous challenges in the next decades: feeding growing global population and addressing climate change. So it's a very huge challenge. Just to give you an example, by 2050, we will have to produce 56% more food to feed nearly 10 billion people. So given the contribution of food production to the drivers of climate change, we can see these two goals as in contradiction, but it is not. We can increase agricultural productivities and efficiency in a sustainable manner, and fertilizer can play a determining role in this, since fertilizer account for 50% of food production. This implies two conditions. Best practices, the 4R stewardship, which means basically to apply the right fertilizer in the right rate, the right time, and the right place. And of course, innovation to develop more efficient technology to increase agriculture. In doing so, you reinforce the soil health. By reinforcing soil health, you reinforce the capability of the soil to sequester CO2, carbon. So sustainable agriculture is very key. It's a very important topics, because you can. It's a very good way to reduce hunger while addressing food security and climate change.
Thank you. So not yet a doomsday, but clearly really important. So we've been talking about sustainability for a little while. Is there any reason why there hasn't been more of an uptake with the agriculture community? Maybe I can address it to Peggy and possibly even Dave, Alison, or Charlie, from your perspectives. Why has there been no uptake on that as yet?
So I think the most common answer would say profitability. Margins are small in agriculture at times. But I actually think there are three things that threaten sustainability in agriculture. The first one probably is top of your mind, and that is climate change. And the world is changing, and so how do we change with it? Farmers talk a lot about the weather more than they do about climate change, but climate change is real to us. And we see new pests coming in, we see changes in what we need for our crops to survive, etc. Some of the answers might come through research. Others can talk about that. The second thing that threatens agriculture sustainability, I believe actually, is politics or geopolitical forces. When Russia invaded the Ukraine, people might have thought that has nothing to do with us here, but it had a huge effect on the agricultural community. One thing is that Ukraine is a huge exporter of wheats and grains into places, and so it shifted the market, and we play in a global market. But the second thing is that the fertilizer that was coming to Canada all of a sudden was tariffed. And that had a significant effect on our bottom line and how we take care of the soils. The third thing I think that threatens agriculture, at least in this country, is that we sometimes take agriculture for granted. And we think that, so Canada is one of 7 regions in the world that actually can export more food than we actually need. And I think when we have a surplus of anything, whether it's water or food, we take it for granted. And yet we have a responsibility globally to provide food. We are a major exporter of food in Canada, and we have a role to play in that. But don't ever think that we can take it for granted. That push on farmland and to protect farmland is so important because once you take farmland out of production and put it into concrete and houses, that that never goes back to farming. And so that continued conversation about don't take farmland or farming for granted, and we need to continue to support this. It tastes great. You like what you eat. You had a great lunch. We can't forget that we also need food to sustain life. It's a life piece.
Dave or Charlie, do you have a perspective that you?
I have a perspective on this, and I agree with everything you've said. But from an innovation standpoint, let's go back and try and correct me if I'm wrong here, because you're a farmer. So if you go back in time, people came to the farmers with all kinds of products, and they said, this is going to increase your productivity by 40%, or this is going to reduce your cost by 20%, or whatever it is. And they would take a little parcel of land, and they try it out, and they would fail dramatically. And other farmers would fail dramatically, and word would get out that this product doesn't work. So over and over again, this has happened to the point where farmers are businessmen, and they know, I'm not touching that innovation, I'm not touching that product until you can prove to me that it works. Now, an innovation in agriculture takes a long time. It has to go through field trials on several growing cycles before the farmers are going to roll up their sleeves and say, at the Tim Hortons down the street here, I used it and it works great. You used it and it works great. I'm going to try it tomorrow. So there's a reason why there's not an immediate uptake on innovation. It has to be proven and validated time and time again before the agriculture community is going to adopt it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why, from McCain's food perspective, we need to give our farmers the tools necessary to get the agronomy right over time. And we need to prove the viability of a lot of these practices. So we've launched 3 farms of the future. We have one in New Brunswick where we are trialing regenerative agriculture techniques on a commercial grade farm. We're taking all the risks. So what we're doing is we are trialing things, we're learning, positive and negative. We're making mistakes so that the farmer doesn't have to. And it's early days right now, but we have shown through some of the techniques, fertilizer is down 17% and our yields are flat, which is great news for us from that perspective. And our overall emissions of the farm are down 30% versus other farms in the area. So that is showing the farmer, giving them reasons to believe. The second point is money. It is going to take some cost to do this transition. So we have entered into different agreements around the world with different banks that backstops loans, writes off interests for the farmer for new equipment. And at the same time, when we're managing our long-term contracts, we are giving an incentive in some parts of the world to our farmers that is an increase on what they would produce per ton to have them do these practices. So we're trying to do things through innovation, trial and error, and also putting money behind it so that the farmer can be de-risked and show that this practice is working going forward.
Okay, so I'm going to take a parallel view. The first thing I want to find out is how many of you have used ChatGPT? Okay, I love this room already. So first off, we're making an assumption that the farmer of the future is going to be my dad on a tractor. I think that's a mistake because over the next 30 years, 60% of our physical inputs could be bioengineered. Bioengineering offers us something new, alternative fertilizers, alternative methods of growing food. I'm so excited about some of the new future technologies. Now, I'm going to take exception with my farmer friend down here because I'm going to say she's always been sustainable. We've got these buzzwords that have jumped into our conversations. One is that farmers are not sustainable. If they weren't sustainable, they wouldn't have a farm. So let's make that assumption right away. Okay. And so first off, we have to say that you're protecting your land for your next generation. You're kind of nuts to be a farmer because you have to invest in something that you don't get paid for. So what I would suggest is that you as a consumer must demand sustainable products. You must demand that your food is produced in a healthy, nutritious way, and you got to pay for it. The next thing you have to do is you have to go to your government and you have to say, hey, the burden doesn't fall on a farmer. The burden doesn't fall on a laboratory or others. This is one of our most critical issues that we have to keep on feeding our kids, our future generations. Sustainability is something we need because we must. So I would say that our farmers are sustainable. We may need to do things better. We may need to do things differently, but it's a huge economic opportunity.
Yeah. Yes, I do agree. The burden should not fall on farmers or on fertilizer producer, because it's not easy to move from theory to practice when we talk about sustainable agriculture. It's not, for example, for my group OCP, it's not just about focusing on supporting and developing best practices in terms of nutrient management or increasing or investing in new technology. It's about all our value chain. Just to give you a few examples, 100% of our water need will come from unconventional water by 2024. I mean, it's already the case. 100% of our energy will come from renewable energy by 2027, and OCP has the objective to be carbon neutral by 2040, which imply a great investment in our process. This is why we have committed in the $13 billion green investment plan. And in doing so, it implies that we're going to substitute, for example, the nitrogen part in some of our fertilizer with green nitrogen, green ammonia, and it imply huge R&D effort and investment. All of this to say that it's not easy to switch from theory to practice. It's not easy neither for the farmer. This is why all support and encouragement are welcome, and this is why regulation should be supportive and not restrictive.
I guess I'd like to maybe come back to you, Alison. In the whole transition towards its technology has always been playing an important role. Maybe from your experience, are there any examples you could share of certain technologies that you wish could be scaled up quickly that would help this cause? Or that already exists and have already set sort of a benchmark on how things could follow?
Well, Dave made a really good point. We've got to adopt the technology we have today. So that's why I asked about ChatGPT. Advanced connectivity. At one time, we said all we need is universal broadband. Well, thanks to Elon Musk, we almost have global connectivity. The problem is we've only connected about 24% of our devices and our machinery and our buildings to this possibility. So advanced connectivity using Internet of Things, and my company was an early innovator in Internet of Things, using sensors, connecting, using artificial intelligence. Oh my goodness, what a possibility we have. The next level of technology that I'm very interested in is gene editing. And so GMO has had a terrible, terrible time. And genetically modified organisms and it's transgenics. We used to take a tomato, and make a better potato. Well, people didn't like that. That was frankincense. But what gene editing is, and please don't be afraid of that technology, gene editing is taking things within our plants and our animals that naturally exist and tweaking them, just like we do in standard evolution. And that has been enabled through computational processes and other things. If we can make our plants better, if we can make our livestock better, if we can make our soil better by using advanced science just to tweak, be a little faster than evolution, that's exciting. The final thing that I'm really keenly interested in is something that's an old technology. Has anybody ever drank beer here? Okay, so we now have a ChatGPT and a beer audience. But precision fermentation and the opportunity to make things in an old way, but make them new with new science. There's just so much incredible innovation that we can put to play.
Charlie, maybe from your perspective, from a corporate's perspective, what does that look like?
Just, at our farms of the future, we are trialing new technologies along the way. Things like see and spray technology, where our tractor has sensors on them where they can see where the blight is on the potato, and then you would surgically put pesticide and fertilizer there that would reduce that. There is traffic-controlled tilling. In the past, we would compact soil because there was no real rhyme or reason to how folks would till, and we're trialing traffic-controlled tilling. The other thing we're doing is predictive imagery through an iPad for our farmers so that they could have the tools necessary to find out when they should harvest, what they should do, and how that works from that perspective through predictive technology. So we are trialing these to try to give our farmers and our grower partners the tools necessary to get to much better place. Because at the end of the day, this is really about not only mitigating climate change, but at the same time, building farmer viability and bulletproofing the farm for years to come. Because at the end of the day, again, as producers, we built our business on the backs of farmers, and we will not have a business without them going forward because they play such a crucial role in feeding everybody. So it's important for us to give them the tools necessary to get to a better place.
Sure.
I guess what I'd like to say is, the glass half full. As a business accelerator, we've got about 3,000 innovations in our database that we've been working with off and on since 2005. And they all, for the most part, are impactful. They are not the ones that are going to give you a home run, but from an evolutionary standpoint, if you do these over a period of time, you will start to see a very big difference. If you go into the research halls, you really start to see a difference. There's research taking place right now in the University of Southern California, University Davis, and in the UK. They found plants that produce their own nitrogen. And what they're trying to do is unlock the relationship between the bacteria and the plant to move that into other plants so that they will also produce their own nitrogen. And what does that do? Well, it alleviates the need for as much fertilizer as we currently have. So when you start to talk about the price of fertilizer from the Ukraine, you start to talk about the runoff and the effect on climate change, there's a lot of work taking place to try and figure out this. If we can do that, that's going to change the dynamic of agriculture dramatically. So agriculture is going to look really, really different in the next 20 years. We're not going to recognize it. And this is what Alison's talking about, how agriculture is so exciting because we're just seeing this at the very tip of the scale.
Yeah.
So as a farmer, all the innovation is wonderful and great, and I have great. I love to see the field trials. Nothing like looking over the fence to see somebody else's crop doing better for me to want to do that. But two things. One is there has to be return on investment. We are still business people. Farmers, small, medium, large, we are business people. The second piece, though, is sometimes it feels like the world is afraid of what we're doing. A lot of times because they just don't know. And I would like to say, if you have questions about anything on farming, talk to a farmer. I will be in the room for a little while. But outside of me, reach out to the farming community and ask questions. So many times, gene editing makes sense to us. GMO might be the right product. Just like when you have a health issue and you go to your doctor and you want to find the best answer to how to be better, farmers also are always looking for the best way to be better and to grow things better. We farm in generations, not just years. So all of those pieces make me as a farmer successful, if we can put all of those pieces together.
Peggy, maybe I want to stay with you a little bit. In terms of actually getting access to technology, getting technology to farmers, what does that look like from your perspective on how easy it is? Is it really happening? I mean, we spoke a little bit about it has to make business sense and predictability. But aside from that, what are sort of like the challenges in getting technology to the farmers?
some of it really is about, can we see it in real practice? The people here who are doing the trials, whether it's on fertilizer, whether it's on growing practices with potatoes, or new innovations with drones, etc., all of those pieces, I want to see it happen. And I think the more often we can invest in getting those trials, those models out there to see, I think that's part of it. The other piece is it really does have to have a good return on investment. Am I going to buy the latest technology when it won't pay off for 20 years and I'm stuck in a place where I can't actually repair it? A rule federally, the right to repair, a lot of people thought it had to do with your phones and your technology there, but it actually also affected us on the farm. Can we repair our tractor from the Purple brand? Like, can we do that? And sometimes that technology and those holdbacks are why we don't invest. I think there has to be also a conversation with agriculture. There are a lot of great things and great, well-intentioned people in the world, but some days it doesn't work. So I like this example. There is a drive to reduce plastic. I think that's great. And the conversation in one circle was, well, we'll just sell all food in bulk. And I said, and my fruit and vegetable guys go, you know what happens when you sell blueberries in bulk? You have blueberry juice. And that's, we have to have conversations with the farmers who are going to use the technology. Farmers are going to adopt the best plastic, the biodegradable one, or the least packaging possible. We are in this game to do the good things, but it has to make sense.
I don't know, Dave, I think maybe you had some thoughts about that too, right?
I think I lost the question.
The question was, Peggy's doing a really good job. I think the question was in actually bringing technologies to farmers. I think you've been in discussions with quite a few companies.
So I would make this comment about the farming community as well as the food processing community. And there are exceptions to this, but by and large, farmers and food processors are in a business which is high volume and low margin. And when the margins are that thin, to your point, to expect them to spend all this money on innovation is unrealistic, particularly if it hasn't been de-risked, in other words, validated. So one of the things that we can do as an industry and with government's help as a catalyst, I'm not asking government to do everything, but as a catalyst to help support the adoption of innovation into the farming community and the food processing community so that they are not on the hook. Think about it this way. If a farmer puts in a new technology and it doesn't work, they could lose their crop for the entire year. If a food processor puts a new technology in and it doesn't work, they may be down for 6 months to 12 months and be out of business. That's not acceptable. But those technologies and innovations are out there to help them. So we've got to find a way to link those innovations with the marketplace.
Maybe to Alison and Charlie, just in terms of expectations of corporates from young and innovative startups in this, what would those be in the space?
So I would just like to respond to that thought. It's not just farmers adopting technology. If you take a look at the OECD business expenditures on research and development, Canada is at the bottom, and we've been declining since the 70s. So what we need is some financial taxation levers that if you're going to adopt new technology, that you have some kind of risk reward return. And my technology scaled globally, and my technology was adopted in Australia before it was adopted in Canada. It was adopted in Brazil before it was adopted in Canada. We as a nation, and I'm speaking only about Canada, even though this is an America's conference, we in Canada must be willing to take the risk to take on innovation because of the return on investment. Now, as a developer, and I know the answer to the question that these two were talking about, I better put a product out there that works. And I better not think that my customers are going to take and pay for that. So there's a responsibility to be a developer. But the innovative solutions, and I'm going to give you 2 solutions that are just awesome. Just invested in a company named Earthos out of Toronto. And they use agricultural byproducts to create a plastic replacement that's fully compostable. Just so we know, only 5% of our plastic is actually ever recycled. So that's a pretty stunning thing. We're using replaceable plastics, but we're not actually recycling them. So we have to face that fact. I've also just invested in a company that it's a packaging company that can keep animal protein products on the shelf for up to 2 years without refrigeration. It kind of gives you a yuck, and if you come to my house, I'll feed you product that's been sitting on the shelf for a while. But those are the kind of innovations we need. We need to change the way we think. We need to adopt new ideas.
Is that scary? How
I don't know. Come to
have
my
people
house and see
responded
what
to
you eat. No, I think there's, of course, food safety, there's food constraints. This is just a really great opportunity to start reshaping our thinking.
Charlie, how about you from your perspective?
Sorry, can you repeat my train of thought as well? I'm enamored with
No
that.
worries. I was just saying from a corporate perspective, what is the sort of expectations from young startups to develop technologies?
I'll put it in through the farmer lens as we talk to them. Progress is going to happen at the speed of trust. So we need to ensure that we show them the capabilities on this. And then as a food manufacturer, as a government, we have the onus to figure out how we're going to de-risk and help fund the transition. Because even if you looked at regenerative practices, there will be a dip in profitability in year 1 or 2, but then that will go up 15 to 20% from a yield perspective. It's that one sweet spot in the middle that we need to find the capital for, whether it's through technology or funding to help bring the farmer along to transition along the way. Governments do have a role to play on this. They have a role to play from an investment perspective, but it's little things. And I look at an example in France. There was a government program in France where they would fund equipment transition. I think it was nitrogen equipment for a farmer. They put the deadline right in the middle of harvest season. How many farmers do you think applied for that program? 0, because they did not have the tools necessary to fund it. So we need a certain level of practicality when we're dealing with a grower. They have so much work to do. They're running a business. They don't need to be inundated with a bunch of craziness. And to your point, you need to show them that it works, and they need to show them how it's going to be de-risked so that they can set up the family farm for the future.
And I'm going to maybe just stay with you to talk a little bit on how consumers view this and value this. We were talking a little bit about whether they perceive this as the next organic. What does that mean?
I don't think we're there yet. And I think the onus is on all of us to create the awareness from a marketing perspective, from a technology perspective along the way to make the consumer understand why it's important and what the seal on the product is. We can't just go out there with empty marketing slogans because that will backfire. And at the end of the day, that will hurt not just us as a manufacturer, but also at the end of the day, the farmer as well. So that's going to take time. And I think the same way we are putting efforts into educating and training the farmer on what the future should look like, we need to put the exact same emphasis to the consumer as well. But it's going to take a lot of awareness. If we were to run research on purchase intent, I think consumers glaze over when you talk about net zero. I don't think a lot of them know what regenerative agriculture means. I think I still struggle with it, to be honest with you, to explain it. I think packaging is one that consumers can wrap their head around, but when you talk about sustainable farming and what that means, we're not there yet, and we all need to do a better job of educating folks along the way.
Maybe Dave and Alison, in your conversations with companies that you're investing in, is that something that comes up? Are they worried about what that means?
I think that food prices are concerning everyone. So we have very, very high food price right now. That challenges our food security. So if I talk to my children, they want to see affordable, nutritious food. That's all they can afford. And so if we're going to put a price premium on safe, nutritious food, it likely won't work. So we have to have a little more creativity, I think, in looking at across the value chain, how can we reduce prices, get sustainable food? And I'm going to tell you the only way we can do that is through innovation.
One of the comments I wanted to make comes back to the communication between the farmers and the innovation and the consumers, and the fact that most of those don't communicate with one another, right? So they don't know what's going on for the most part. I'll give kudos to the Canadian government because they came out with a program when they recognized this, and they hired a bunch of organizations, PR organizations mostly, to gear up social media and to talk about success stories of innovation as they apply to agriculture and food, and to message those to both the agriculture community and to the consumer community, and to talk also to the consumers about what the impact of these innovations is going to be and how it's going to affect you as a consumer. Now, this is just early days. It's only been going on for about 8 months. But they are clearly trying to address the under 30 crowd, because they're on Facebook and they're on Twitter and they're on all these things. They're putting videos up and so on because they recognize it's an issue. So to your point, we've got a long way to go, but at least now we're starting to see some progress.
Karim, maybe just from your perspective as well, given how fertilizers or the misinformation that may be around fertilizers, is that something maybe OCP is also engaging on a broad marketing level to, and has there been any feedback or how is that being received?
Yeah. Actually, we see ourselves at OCP more as a agriculture solution provider than a mining company. And OCP has developed in that sense a very comprehensive ecosystem of innovation and research. I can give some example. The OCP Foundation has funded a university. We call it UM6P, University Mohammed VI Polytechnique. And of course, agriculture has a big place in that university. So this university is really dedicated to research and to face the challenge of course, agriculture, but also of Africa. And this university has also its own ecosystem to promote innovation. They have created Stargate, which is an incubator and accelerator to make the connection between the student research and the market. And there's also what we call Innovix, that is an affiliate to M6P and that is designed to build and scale up technology-powered industry. And we have put in place also capital venture funds. There's the UM6P Venture Fund that is the investment arm of UM6P to encourage entrepreneurship. And it's an early stage venture. And it does contribute to promote and to encourage the development of startup in the field of course, agriculture. Always sustainable agriculture is everywhere in all these innovation ecosystem. And it's, of course, in agriculture, developing, it's all about developing agricultural solution, but also, for example, digital agriculture services and innovation in energy and water, because it's all linked to efficient agriculture. So there's also BIDRA, which means in Arabic seed, which is another capital venture fund of $250 that are investing to develop different solutions for farmers in agriculture, energy, water, and and AI and so on and so forth. So this is all to say that yes, OCP is very committed to develop research and to finance it through this ecosystem.
Great. I see that we're almost coming to the end of our session, and I want to leave some time for some closing remarks. And I do have something. I mean, we're as far as sustainability is concerned, we're talking about net zero goals, and we have many benchmarks of years. So for you, from an agriculture, for someone engaged in agriculture, if you have to think of one tangible, ideal benchmark that you want to see as common practice within the next 10 years, what would that be?
Well, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
We can't end
Next
it.
6 months.
I think I'm going to adjust your question a little bit and say one thing that agriculture is working towards and slowly adopting more and more is data management. Occasionally people think that we're just still pitchforks and chicken under my arm. And we're not. We're actually very skilled data managers. Precision agriculture is real. It is in the fields. There is now technology where you can have robotics go through and pull out weeds amongst the vegetables. There is technology that robotic milkers, I don't have to be in the barn to milk my cows. In fact, it's lasers and computers and amazing technologies, and that's not new. That's been there for a while. It is specific gene editing that might produce a type of cow that doesn't have horns, which would make it safer for the farmers to handle. And all of those pieces have to do with, on the farm, sometimes data management, but also in the technologies that are being developed, etc. We are a modern sector, and it's only moving forward faster and faster. I really love how agriculture continues to adapt and become more and more sustainable going forward, and I'm very proud to represent it. And I'm glad for people like Dave and Alison and Karim and, I've forgotten your name. Charlie. But I'm very thankful for the people that are actually helping us become something really, really great.
I guess I got 2 things. I have a lengthy list, but I'll just try and keep it down to a couple. One is, to Alison's point earlier, that we in Canada are absolutely abysmal at bringing innovation into the marketplace. I think you said 20th or something like that, or whatever, back from the 1970s, and we just haven't improved. That's a function of the ecosystem that we have and the way that our ecosystem is set up and the funding that comes to support that ecosystem. That needs to change if we're going to operate like a country and move from 20th in global up to the top 10. We're number 8 in research. We're just terrible at getting that innovation into the marketplace. So that's got to be fixed. The other thing I'd like to see is, and this came from a presentation earlier on today, where we had a number of corporations at the panel who were actually working together on projects. Even though they were competitive, they were working together on projects. I haven't seen that happen very often in agriculture. You try to get agriculture companies, and I'm not saying food, I'm saying agriculture, you try and get them at the same table working on the same challenge, and the likelihood is that they're going to do it on their own behind the scenes. We need them to get beyond thinking about the corporation. Yes, they need profits and so on, but there is a global perspective to this, and they need to be working together to solve the global problems.
Yeah, I agree. And with all the comments that were made, I think we have to stop talking to farmers and talking with farmers overall, and bring them along on the journey. At the end of the day, like I said earlier, our founder said, if we don't get the agronomy right, nothing else matters at the end of the day. And this, to your point, this is not about competitive advantage. It's really about all of us working collaboratively to get to a much better place where we will mitigate climate change. But more importantly, this is really about the resiliency of the farm and also bulletproofing the supply chain for years to come. So that's where I would be on that.
So fundamentally, I agree. but I'm an investor. And so I really don't want the entire world to understand what a great investment that agriculture is, because I'm going to have to work harder. So what I really do, I'm being glib, but I really want Canada and the world to understand what a huge economic opportunity sustainable agriculture is. I also want to mention something we haven't mentioned before, and I mentioned my dad on a tractor. Let's make agriculture inclusive and diverse to literally encompass everyone in this incredible journey. And if you've got a great innovation, please bring it to me first. And but thank you so much. What a wonderful conversation.
Okay. We, as a fertilizer company, we think that for our stewardship should be extend and enlarge. And this is what we have been doing. We have developed a very customized fertilizer, for example, to really feed the soil and the plant with its exact needs. And this prevent the overuse of nutrients that can be sometimes associated with environmental degradation. And it's allowed to really increase and optimize the soil health and soil plant, and of course, productivity and efficiency of agriculture. So we are very supportive of this. And as an example, with our customized fertilizer, we have succeeded to increase the yield by 50% in Ethiopia and by 35% in Ghana, for example. But I can talk about others result in other countries, but we have developed this, and I think this is the kind of approach that should be developed. We are working, by the way, with Fertilizer Canada on this, and so yes.
Great. So I guess a lot to be done, and clearly debate is just not enough. We need some quick action as well. And it's great to see so many parts of the value chain working so tirelessly towards it. Thank you so much for this very interesting discussion today.